news, everyone.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I see dead people.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
And knowing is half the battle.
What, the deuce?
Must have the precious.
And all forms the head.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take it away.
What you talking about, Willie?
Wow, infotainment.
Welcome to another Transmissions Extra, the show that we don't do much anymore. But we thought that we would throw one of these out there because I kind of thought of a really fun topic and I had to get it done because it was fun. So with me today is Jeremy. Say hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy.
You did
Never
the
gets
joke.
old.
And what we're going to talk about today is something kind of fun. Jeremy, what would you say your comic book tastes, where do they lie?
At this moment, probably mid-90s DC comics, because that's when the characters I like were still alive.
Okay. All right. What we were going for there was DC, just DC.
Well,
that's all. But that's okay.
No, we'll get into exactly why later.
Okay. And the reason why I've asked Jeremy on is because of his love for DC Comics. Preferably mid-90s.
Well, no, I like DC in general. I just don't like their management at the moment.
And my tastes are very Marvel. So we thought we'd have a really interesting back and forth, and we'd do a fun little experiment here to see and maybe have a discussion about who our opposite characters, our favorite characters are for the opposition. So who are my favorite or top 3 DC characters and vice versa for Jeremy and Marvel. And thought this would be kind of fun, and we can talk about the choices and see how our rankings kind of come out. So since this was my idea, I'm going to get started first and get the ball rolling here with my third choice of my top 3. My least favorite of the 3.
Well, of the 3.
Yes. And I picked, for all of my characters, I picked just heroes. I didn't pick any villains.
Me too.
Although I believe there is an anti-hero on my list, but I still count him as a hero. But anyway, so my third choice for DC, I chose Flash.
Which one?
Flash. Red suit, can run really fast.
There's been a few.
I don't know a lot about Flash, but I own some really cool Flash comic books.
Yeah.
And that's why I picked him. The Flash comic is the single oldest comic that I have in my collection, from 1961. And I had a hard time with DC, so I'm not a big DC fan, and since I did spend some significant coinage on my Flash comic book, I figured, you know what, I'm going to put Flash on this list.
You have probably one of my most desired comics, like, you know, outside of like Action #1 or Detective 27. You know, which are completely unattainable. You recently got Flash 123.
Yes, I do.
Which
I have a Flash 123.
Which is like the birth of the multiple Earths and, you know, bringing back the original Golden Age Flash. And
that's right.
That's like probably the most desired comic that I have on my want list.
it's a pretty cool comic to have. It's I find it interesting to kind of look at it because that single issue was released before the entire Marvel Comics universe was started.
Yeah.
So before it's granted, everyone gives credit to Fantastic Four #1 as being the birth of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
This Flash book came out before that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you did have Namor and Captain America.
of course,
They
these guys
existed.
came out and they were for timely comics and
Right.
stuff like that. So Marvel was in essence around, but yeah, you're right. It's wasn't in by name. So
Yeah, I mean, the Marvel universe is a pretty much born in the Silver Age.
exactly.
And-
Yeah, it's a teenager or at least a 40-year-old by now in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
When it comes to the comic book industry. So I don't know a lot about Flash. This book that I do own is pretty awesome. Like you said, it's the combination or the birth of the multiverse, combining the Golden Age Flash with the Silver Age Flash. It's a pretty cool book to have. And I've recently bought a couple other books to kind of have around it, so that's kind of neat. But it's I know there's a Flash TV show. Obviously, it's doing very well. I've never seen an episode. I thought that the Flash in the DC Justice League movie was not great, but it was still there for kind of comic relief. It did okay, but the movie wasn't great, so it did kind of not well.
It's after having a live action TV show for a number of years, getting someone completely different to play the same character, it was just jarring.
It is. It's rough. Yeah. So that's my number 3. Jeremy, who's your number 3 for Marvel?
It would be The Thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't have too many books with him. I've recently picked up a few of the Fantastic Four books that have just been relaunched. But every time I've ever come across The Thing in like cartoons or, horrible movies, he's not, like in the movies, he's not ever the worst part of the movie. Because there's always much worse. But he seems to be like a character that all the other characters like, no one really has, issues, like on a team. He's always kind of like the heart of the team. And it's always just been a character that I've enjoyed, reading or seeing.
Yeah, The Thing is he's an integral part of the Fantastic Four. He keeps he's almost kind of like the moral center of the team. You've got Johnny Storm, the hothead, the young just a kid who's got the superpowers and he's just trying to milk it for whatever he can. And then you've got Mr. Fantastic and Sue, who are just like they're the brains, right? They're they're there to kind of keep everything together and to do all the smart sciencey shit. So,
and he also keeps them grounded, I think.
Yeah, and he's older than everyone else, I believe, in the comics anyway, and he's physically stronger. Obviously, the accident turns him into rock, which is it's a tough hand to be dealt. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting character, and he's been given some really good character development over the years. I personally don't have a lot of stuff on The Thing. I've been doing trying to get an early run of Fantastic Four going, but I haven't read any of them yet. So I'd like to do a 1 through 100 read and try and get that done. But it's kind of expensive to get those early Fantastic Four books. So
yeah.
But that's a good pick. Do you think they'll ever do a really a good Fantastic Four movie?
Let's see. The rights are still with Sony, right?
No, they went back to with the Fox deal. They were with Fox, so they went back to Disney.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if Disney's in charge, I think they'll make a good one.
Cool.
If it's just like, I guess Sony has Spider-Man, and they seem to be doing good because they're letting Marvel do a lot of the heavy lifting, and they're just like opening their wallets and taking in the money.
Exactly.
So it's who is it that still has licenses? Because like Fox is all now moved in. Universal has the Hulk.
So Fox still retained X-Men.
Yeah.
I
So yeah, I mean all of those are moved, but
yeah,
like Universal I think has Namor.
No. Wait.
And
no.
Standalone Hulk movies.
Fox moved X-Men and Fantastic Four back to Disney, but Sony kept Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I believe that's where it stayed. There's a couple others, like I believe She-Hulk is still with Sony too, but they've never done anything with her.
No, Universal has the Hulk characters.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Marvel can use the Hulk in team movies, but not a standalone.
Oh.
It's a weird thing. I went on a rat hole one day just reading.
We need to get that big graph that shows where everyone is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that's that'd be neat to see a good movie with the Fantastic Four.
My idea of bringing them into the MCU is something I can see them doing, where like a Fantastic Four movie, but set like in the 60s.
Okay.
And they go into space, have their whole origin thing. The accident happens, but they either like come back and have some adventures in the 60s and then get like stuck in time and come to modern day, or the accident has a temporal thing to it, and when they come back they're in modern day, and boom, Fantastic Four.
That's cool. I like the idea of also keeping it as, I mean, MCU is also like over 20 movies old now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to kind of weave them in now, but you bring them in, have their movie origin story 60s, and then weave them into the MCU as old people. Like they were the heroes of the 60s. And now they're just they're older, and they're kind of the the advisors to.
And you're just like telling they're telling like their movies would all be set in the 60s or.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you see an old Mr. Fantastic stretch to get something, and his finger pops off because he's brittle now.
That's gross. All right. Well, we're going to move on to my second DC DC character. And this one was an odd choice, but I don't know. I felt that it kind of it works in the confines of the game, I guess. My number 2 DC character is Catwoman. She's kind of grown on me in the last little while, mainly on the strength of the Art Germ covers that have been done for the last 6 issues of her new series.
Yeah.
But I do remember being a kid watching Batman Returns and Michelle Pfeiffer in the latex outfit or whatever the hell that was. It was really awesome.
Yeah.
And
for a young teenager.
Yes. I was smitten. That movie was awesome. And I thought, you know what? Catwoman is a kick-ass character. And, she could take care of herself. She was a little cuckoo for Cocoa. But I think it worked to her advantage in the movie. the modern interpretation of the character, obviously in current comic books, she's in love with Batman. There was a wedding. Whether or not that happened, I don't think so. But I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. But
it's a comic book
happened.
wedding, so
Something happened at a wedding between Catwoman and Batman. Weird. But anyway, it's comic books. But Catwoman is a character that I think can definitely stand up on her own. She has no superpowers, and she's formidable.
Yeah.
So I definitely like that about the character. I think DC, in my eyes, is a save for one incredible character that is unbeatable. It's a lot of characters on the DC side that have no superpowers but are also very super in their own right. I like Catwoman. She was very instrumental in my youth. Thank you, Michelle Pfeiffer. And Catwoman's my number 2.
And she's gotten a lot of good character development over the last few years in particular. So, I mean, like, I think in the 80s, part of her origin was that she was a prostitute, and I think they've pretty much retconned that out now.
Okay.
And they're going back to the whole cat burglar thing.
Sure.
And
well, that kind of fits with the Gotham show, right?
I guess. Yeah, I don't watch the Gotham show.
I know. It's not great, but it does have a young Catwoman in there, so.
But I think, she's, well, I mean, she has her own book now, so obviously she can stand on her own. And, yeah, I mean, they've done a lot of good stuff with her.
Yeah. Jeremy, what's your number 2 Marvel character?
He's this very little known character, like very obscure. This guy called Spider-Man.
Oh.
I don't know if you've heard of him.
I think he appears in a couple books.
Yeah.
Like briefly. Guest star appearances.
Yeah. So I don't know. He's been someone, like, even when I was a kid and I would watch the cartoons like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and stuff. Before I knew like any distinction between DC and Marvel and stuff, I like Spider-Man. And I don't know. I mean, he's had his ups and downs. Like I'm not too big on reading a lot of the Marvel comics, but he's in so many other forms of media. I remember even like watching that MTV series until I just gave up on it. I don't know if you remember that one.
I think so.
Yeah, it was not the best. But then we've had so many other good ones. Like the 90s like afternoon cartoon block was just great for DC and Marvel both. I mean, you had like the X-Men stuff and you had the Batman animated series. It was just great in general, but I don't know. There's just so many good Spider-Man story or movies and stories and stuff. And I haven't seen Spider-Verse yet, but
my goodness.
I've heard it's fantastic. It's on my list.
Yeah, you got to see that.
So it's weird because his age has gone back and forth so much. And what is your favorite? Like, do you prefer him being kind of in high school or college or an adult? Or
that's a good question. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I've read Spider-Man books for a lot of years now. I don't think I like him when he's in high school or college. It reminds me too much of being in high school and college. And sure, a good writer can really write well for a teenager. I think I liked him better. Like, even when this was coming out, like, monthly or bi-weekly, I liked him better when he was, a young adult, engaged or married to Mary Jane. That was my favorite Peter Parker. And they just had some really good chemistry as a couple together. The dynamic of, Peter always worrying about, Mary Jane, or lack thereof worrying about Mary Jane. But Mary Jane constantly worrying about Peter being out there, fighting, whether he was going to come home or not. Made for some interesting reading, and she was literally left to just sit there and wait for him. Was kind of heartbreaking. And as a teenager reading these comics, I was like, she could go out and do something, I guess, well, and not have to wait and be worried. But as you grow up, you realize that you're almost like paralyzed with fear to go out. You have to wait, and you have to make sure that they come home okay. There was some really good writing back in the Mary Jane years. And as I read it as an adult, every time that she kind of comes in and out of the book, I'm hopeful that they'll get back together. It's kind of there, kind of not in things I think they ever did. Yeah, it's that's my kind of opinion on my favorite Peter Parker.
Cool.
But yeah,
I am totally in favor of the heroes getting married, and like
they have to progress, right?
Yeah, when they broke up, Peter and Mary Jane, and when New 52 happened, and like Superman and Lois were no longer together and stuff, that just, it's like you're going back and telling the same old stories. I mean, when you get the characters married, that's like uncharted waters. All this room for new stories. I mean, they're a team. She can help out on, covering for him, or, maybe she has skills that he doesn't have. I mean, I'm not sure what Mary Jane's career is, but I mean, I know
she's mostly it was a supermodel, and then she was kind of like a club promoter or something like that. And,
I mean, I know on the Superman side, I mean, Lois is, you always kind of imagine her as kind of the heroine that needs help or whatever, but she's got brains, and there's many times that he goes, uses her help to fix whatever the issue is. And I don't know, that's just the executives that are like, we can't have relationships in comics just drive me nuts.
Yeah, when Marvel it originally started out as a 5-issue mini during their most recent Secret Wars kind of relaunch, or whatever the hell they called that. But they did this thing called Renew Your Vows, which is they went into a universe and told a story where Peter and Mary Jane were still were married and had a daughter, and they all had spider powers. And I jumped at that series because I wanted to read a story about them being married still. And then they came back with that series as a ongoing, and once again I just had to get my grips on it and read it, because it was one of those things that I didn't realize how much I wanted to read that story of Peter and Mary Jane together again. So yeah, that's a good pick. That's your number 2.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's move on to my number 1. And this one, if anyone knows me, knows this is not a big surprise. When we started talking about this as an idea, my number 1 was solidly on the list here. 2 and 3, they were harder to figure out. My number 1 DC character, that's Batman. I'm a Batman fan. Yeah. Out of all of the books that I have that are not Marvel, I would say the majority of them are Batman books. I've done a lot of work gathering key issues of Batman's story. You know, I guess it would be the 70s through to present day. So Batman's got a storied history of his own, dating back to, 1940? So
38. Or no, yeah, you're right, 40. Sorry.
Please, what the hell? So when you talk about buying up Batman key issues, unless you're a wealthy person, there's only so far a regular person can go before you got to start digging into some serious coin to get some of those early Batman key issues. Yep. And I think I've gone that far with Batman.
Actually, it's 39.
But,
it was 39.
39?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 39. All right.
Before someone emails.
The Batman has always been just the opposite to the Marvel books that I read. Marvel always was very, I wouldn't say happy, but they're brighter and colorful. Batman is a dark story. It's a very dark tale. The first superhero movie I ever watched was Batman, and it kind of progressed from there. And it has a kick-ass car.
He has a lot of them.
And they seem to change every single issue. But yeah, no, it's his Batmobile is definitely something that makes unique. A lot of superheroes wear capes. A lot of superheroes can, I know he doesn't fly, but it makes it seem like he can fly with all of his gizmos and gadgets. But not a lot of characters have a car like he has to get around. And he's got a car, he's got a plane, a sub, a helicopter. The guy's he's got it all. Motorcycle, all kinds of things. And I just like the that Batman has really the character has stayed true for they're sure the character of Robin, his sidekick, kind of started off as a buddy little kid representation character, but it's blossomed into much more. Robin is a character now that can really hold his own and also be killed multiple times. So
and come back.
And also, which wouldn't have happened in the 39, 40s, also be a girl. So it's Dark Knight Returns is a masterpiece of storytelling. And if anyone out there has not read Dark Knight Returns, you need to read that. It's 4 issues. It can be wordy, but it is a masterpiece.
I have not read Dark Knight Returns.
Oh my god!
I'm not a fan of the art style, and I don't know.
It can be rough. You can watch the movie. The movie's almost as good as the books, but I think I might have seen. You're talking about the animated movie? Yeah,
I think I might have seen the first half of that.
Okay, yeah, it was a double, 2 movies.
But yeah, it's the art style. I don't know. It's a little. You have to get used to it, but
well, yeah. I mean, it's Frank Miller, right? So,
but that's a good pick. Yeah. I mean, especially like these days with, especially what Tom King's doing, it is super dark, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Batman right now, because I mean, he needs a psychiatrist, and that's obviously not going to happen.
I have not been reading Batman recently. like I said, I've been concentrating on getting like older key issues. First appearances of Jason Todd, Dick Grayson, that kind of thing, and Killer Croc. He's a character you can get a first appearance of in the modern book. So got one of those.
Yeah.
Batman is a character with an incredible rogues gallery as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not many characters can sport a rogues gallery as diverse as Batman's. You also get probably one of the most recognizable villains in all of comics with the Joker. It really is an incredible character with Batman. That's my number one pick. Batman's pretty cool. He gets some pretty kick-ass movies. Anyone has played him in those movies. Some to not the best reviews, but you got to give it a shot.
Well, and he's just a guy, so it's something you could technically see yourself being if you had a ton of money and wanted to do CrossFit nonstop.
Of course, yeah, I could do that.
But I mean, there's no powers there. He's just a smart rich guy.
Yeah, it fits with my number 2 pick, Catwoman, where they both do not have powers and yet they still hold their own and can do some serious damage. Yeah. And I know it kind of got lost in I think it was it Justice League? It might have been Justice League movie, but Batman doesn't use a gun, although he has been seen in old comics using a gun. I don't know. There's some
Batman v Superman. I think he used a gun.
Yeah, so it's cloudy now, but
he should not use a gun.
For the longest time, Batman did not use a gun, and that was the deal. And he was supposed to be a detective, and that's his deal, right? So he's solving crimes, he's figuring shit out, and that's what I like about him.
That's one of my favorite aspects of him is just when they give him a good detective story where he's having to spot clues and use his brain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a great crossover from a couple of years ago with Batman and the Flash because the Flash, Barry Allen, is a CSI, so they were both using their skills to try to figure out this problem, and I love that.
Cool. Well, that's my number 1. What is your number 1 Marvel character, Jeremy?
Well, you went dark, so I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum. It's Captain America.
Oh, Cap.
Yeah, except for the period where he was a Nazi, but
okay.
I mean, other than that, he's had a lot of good stories. I'm not as much of a fan of the ones where they de-age him, or I guess they re-age him and make him an old man. But he's like the moral compass of the entire Marvel universe,
mm-hmm.
particularly the MCU, but I'm sure in the comics as well. And generally, if he's saying we need to do something, you can generally count on it being the thing that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great how they brought him into the modern age after he was one of those World War II era characters. I think it's his first issue. He's punching Hitler.
Yep.
And when the Silver Age started and Marvel was starting their stuff and they brought him back by having him frozen in ice, that's an ingenious way of bringing back a World War II character, 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, so you get the man out of time, and then you also just have this, like, the way the serum acted is like, kind of, the way they describe it in the movie where, like, if you're bad, it kind of emphasizes that, but if you're good, it brings that out more. So he's just like kind of like the ultimate good, and I don't know. It's just he's a character that I've always enjoyed reading.
Yeah, I guess if D Superman as their Boy Scout, Captain America would definitely be Marvel's Boy Scout, and they kind of fit the same bill. Captain America has died a number of times, and always seems to find a way back.
Yeah.
Even with the whole Nazi aspect that he was, I was reading that kind of go around, and he truly wasn't a Nazi.
Yeah.
His mind was kind of pushed aside. His takeover, and it's comics. It's crazy. But yeah, that's a good pick. I remember I was actually in Florida on vacation when they killed him in the comics, and I bought the issue from a Tampa Bay comic book store, and the guys had them on the counter by the cash register, and he said, "Oh, do you want the regular cover or do you want the variant cover?" I'm like, "The variant cover is cool. It's got him running towards you." And I'm like, "I'll take that one." And the other one had the newspaper clipping with his hand and the handcuff and some blood on it, right? Like, that's cool. So I just bought the one, and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And then like the next day, like it was in the actual newspaper,
Yeah.
Captain America's dead.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? How is this in the newspaper?
Just like when Superman died. It's like,
yeah,
they don't realize this is comics.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
he'll be
when
back.
they killed Captain America, they already had how they're going to bring him back.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I have to say, like, I mean, I read all of those Civil War books. And that first Civil War like event was a thing of beauty. It was written beautifully, was drawn immaculately, and it ended exactly the way it should have ended.
Yeah, I still need to read that.
When Captain America gets shot coming out of the courthouse, you're like, oh my God, I didn't see it coming. Him and Tony had been arguing, and it's, the movie tried to make as much of it as they could, and they did an okay job, but the comic is really, it's really good. I mean, characters died in it from fighting each other, and it was great. But it really is one of the best event books that's ever been done. But the way that they ended that with Captain America getting shot was just fantastic.
Cool.
Right? Oh. Well, why don't we switch the tables over and talk about what we really actually like too? So I know we've both made a list of our top 3 favorite Marvel and DC's characters. Why don't you go first then? And Jeremy, tell me your third favorite DC character.
This was tough.
Really?
Yeah, because there's so many.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I probably know 3 Marvel characters. No, but I don't know. It's just going through like the stuff I'm reading, the stuff I'm enjoying, and then the stuff I enjoyed in the past. I probably had to choose Nightwing as my third favorite.
Okay.
Dick Grayson. Unfortunately, right now, he's been shot in the head, and he has decided his name is Rick now, R-I-C, and this, I think, comes from Dan DiDio not wanting to have people joke about the name being Dick, and it's absolutely stupid. But when he is in his right mind and he is Nightwing, I think kind of like the Thing, he is the most liked character in the DC universe amongst the other heroes. Like if he vouches for somebody, that's good enough for everyone. And I mean, he's like Batman's only successful Robin, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of graduated and became his own person. He's mentored Damian Wayne, Batman's son, the current Robin.
Yep.
And the current Young Justice series that's on the DC streaming service has been really good and kind of showing, like, he's training these people that are just getting powers, and they have all these powers yet they still can't touch them, and it just shows like his training and stuff, and being an acrobat before his parents were killed. I mean, he could probably go toe to toe with Batman, I would think. And just like he's Batman without all the angst. He has moved past his parents' murder and become a stable person, whereas Batman is still kind of unhinged and can't let go and can't move past his parents' murder.
He's also in the Teen Titans Go.
Yeah. He's. I mean, Young Justice is pretty much kind of a Teen Titans thing, but yeah, I mean and when they started Teen Titans, he was still Robin, and then,
yes.
But when they did the oh crap, can't name of the thing, the Judas Contract.
Oh, right. Yes.
That was when he basically said he was quitting. He was giving up the Robin mantle, and that's when eventually he became Nightwing from there. So,
do you think, because you've watched all of Titans, right? Yeah.
Wait, can you say that again?
You've watched all of Titans now, right?
Yeah, I have.
Do you think that that's where they'll take season 2? And turn him into Nightwing at that point?
I was really surprised they didn't do it in season 1, but I definitely see that happening.
Okay.
And I've said many places that I was expecting a dumpster fire when I saw that first trailer, and he had the F Batman line and stuff. I'm like, what is happening here? And then actually watching it, I really, really like the series, and I like the guy they have playing Dick Grayson and what they did. I mean, it is showing him trying to do that, like come out from Batman's his shadow and figure out how to still be a hero without being so dark. I really liked it.
He's mentoring a couple of the kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And we've talked about Titans quite a bit because as a Marvel guy, somehow I fell in love with that show as well. And it's definitely a very good show. And it's on Netflix here in Canada. So take a look at that.
You get lucky.
Yes. But yeah, it's been a really great show. Dick Grayson is a good pick, and he almost made it onto my list, but I thought he would. All my characters being Batman related would be a bit much.
But so who's your number 3?
My number 3 for Marvel. My number 3 is Venom. The most recent movie aside, because it wasn't great, I really like the character of Venom in the Marvel comics, specifically around the time when he was introduced. He was scary, but there was a side to him that was kind, and when the Venom movie was about to come out, I did this kind of twice daily tweet about the comics that featured the first appearances of Venom and kind of a lead up to the movie. And there was a couple comics that featured where he was trying to get, vengeance against Spider-Man, and he would stop his attacks on Spider-Man to save, a bystander that had kind of gotten caught up in the carnage that was going on. See what I did there? Carnage.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So, and I thought, you know what? This guy is not all bad. He's an anti-hero for sure, but he has a goal. It's to take out Spider-Man, and that's because Spider-Man has caused Eddie Brock, the host, and the Venom symbiote both personal pain, and they are upset with Spider-Man, and so they have an issue. But other than that, Venom, the character, wants to do good, so he begins doing very much of a Punisher type of run on everything, where he starts to take out bad guys, and the character progression through the years was interesting, to say the least. Venom would appear probably once a year or so for a certain amount of years, and every time the book sales would just go through the roof, and it was a really interesting thing to watch. Also, they had Mark Bagley drawing them for the last few years, and it was a really good. Mark Bagley is a really great artist, and definitely shaped a lot of my memories of how Venom should look. But in the later years, they changed a lot of the hosts. Like the Venom symbiote bounced around from host to host to host, and kind of picked up different traits from each host. And in most recent years has made it back to Eddie Brock, and in doing so actually sought him out because the host wanted to do good again. The host that he had, one of the hosts prior to him, was Flash Thompson, just an old classmate of Peter Parker's when he was younger, but in his adulthood became a soldier, and got the symbiote gained all of these really good feelings about doing good for other people from working with Flash, and wanted to impart that once again. He wanted to get the symbiote wanted to get that feeling once again, and sought out Eddie to do that, and I thought that was a really great kind of moment to kind of have that put back in the book, that the symbiote itself had a kind of a motive to finding Eddie Brock. But yeah, Venom's an interesting character, something that you wouldn't really kind of think about being a hero, but definitely has hero potential.
Yeah. Well, I don't know too much about, I know about Venom, but I've never actually read any of these stories, and
sure,
I always just assumed that the symbiote was in control. So it seems like I need to read some.
Yeah, it's a partnership for sure. Definitely Venom can take things too far. It's an alien, and it needs the host body to kind of rein it in sometimes. There's been cases in the book where the symbiote has eaten someone, and that's rough. So then the host has got to take him back and let the symbiote know that that's, first of all, it's gross as hell. Don't do that, and we're don't and eating people is not acceptable. So yeah, Venom's an interesting read. because he does talk in it's not a third person, but it's like a duality. He refers to himself as we. So it's an interesting kind of a read. What would you say is your second favorite DC character?
Well, this one's on your list, Flash.
Oh.
Although my favorite Flash is Wally West from the 90s. That was when I was really like getting into reading comics, like more than just, when I was starting to go to a comic shop and making pull lists and stuff.
Okay.
That's when I really got into Flash, and Barry Allen was dead at the time, so Wally West was the Flash.
Okay.
He's one of those, like, he got married, had kids, and then the New 52 happened, and suddenly he was gone.
Oh.
And since then, like, he came back with Rebirth, and he just wasn't treated well at all by DC, and it upsets me because, like, he and Barry have this great relationship because he idolized Barry as a kid, or he idolized the Flash as a kid. And it's like they just threw all these potential stories down the toilet. So he's the Flash that you see on, like, the Justice League cartoons that were on Cartoon Network. That was Wally West Flash. And he's been in Young Justice, but he's not currently, for reasons that you need to watch. I'm not going to spoil that. But he's always like, Barry is the serious scientist. And Wally is just like, he has fun with the powers, and I don't know, he seems to be more kind of happy all the time. And yeah, it's just, I like these characters that aren't dark and brooding. If you were to get superpowers, you would probably have fun with it. So
I would. I'm just looking up here to see Wally West first appeared, and it was Flash 110. That's an old book. That's a real old book.
Yeah, I mean, he was, he was the original Kid Flash. So, like, when all the heroes had to have their sidekicks.
Yeah.
And he was in Teen Titans, and, just another one of those characters that was allowed to grow up, like Nightwing.
Yeah. That's cool. Neat.
All right. So how about you?
Yeah.
What's your number 2?
My number 2. This character was was in the first comic book I ever owned. And it was a gift to me from one of my mom's students. This character is Wolverine. Wolverine, the story goes about my first comic book. My mom was a teacher, and one of the kids in her class gave her a comic book. It is Wolverine 77, and said, "Here, give this to your son. He might like it." And it's I did. And it's an amazing story. Plus, it was the first part of a 3-issue arc that I know I immediately had to read the rest of. But later found out that Wolverine was Canadian, which made it a whole lot better. And that he was like the best superhero ever, and had these kick-ass claws made of metal, which the book that I got, he had lost the metal claws like 2 issues earlier, and I had to find out how that happened. And so he had these badass bone claws at the time. So when I found out he's supposed to have metal claws, I was like, what the hell? So yeah, I don't know how old I was. I probably was around like, I don't know, 11 or so. But yeah, so Wolverine, he's just a really, he's just a kick-ass character. I mean, he's supposed to be, according to like all this, like this, what is it, the Marvel fandom page or whatever, he's supposed to be like 5'4", maybe even shorter. So when they cast Hugh Jackman to play him, who's like 6'2", they're like, I don't know whether this is going to work out. I can tell you, from my opinion, Hugh Jackman has knocked it out of the park as Wolverine. And if he's done, then I'm fine with it. If he wants to come back and do more, I'm also fine. But Wolverine, he's had some really, really great storylines over the years. He's had some shit ones too. But they seem to... Marvel likes to overuse Wolverine. And so you got to know when to kind of bow out of a Wolverine story. So they decided to kill Wolverine finally. He was a character that I have seen in more than one comic book reduced to a skeleton and has come back from that.
It's just a flesh wound.
It's a hit. And so they decided they were going to kill him. And killing Wolverine took, I don't know, 2 years. And it was just horrible. Now, to their credit, they kept him dead for like 3 or 4 years, which is
these days that's really good for comics.
It's a lot. Now, before we give Marvel a parade, they also, at the time, had like 5 other characters running around the MCU calling themselves Wolverine. One of them was Old Man Logan. One of them was X-23. One of them was this Weapon H. And then there was a couple more. It's ridiculous.
Honey
One
Badger.
of them's the Ultimate X, is like the Ultimate Universe Wolverine, who kind of came over, and it's comics, but it's ridiculous. And yeah, so the universe was not missing a Wolverine, but the 616 universe Wolverine was gone. But yeah, so anyway, they're in the process currently. They might be done. I'm way behind right now, but they might be done. They're in the process of bringing Wolverine, the 616 Wolverine, back. And this process has taken a long time as well. So this is something that kind of bugs the hell out of me about Marvel, when they have a character that they know is just going to just cash in for them. They grind it out. But when you can get a good Wolverine story, I really enjoy it. I'm trying to think. There was the 4-issue miniseries that started it all. The one that's written and drawn by Frank Miller. It was the one that they heavily based the Wolverine movie, so Wolverine 2, on. It's quite good. And there's a couple others scattered through, but yeah. What do you have any memories or any kind of like thoughts or opinions on Wolverine?
Yeah, I mean, I like the character. I think Hugh Jackman is like the perfect casting. I mean, much like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. are like they've had a lot of good luck with perfect casting. I don't. I mean, I've read probably more Wolverine Marvel comics than any other character, just because for a while there he was pretty much in every comic.
Yeah.
Marvel does kind of milk their cash cows.
Yep.
But
They,
I mean, I watched the animated X-Men cartoon in the 90s, and he was a big part of that. And I wish they would kind of consolidate. I mean, I think they are getting rid of like Old Man Logan and kind of cleaning up the Wolverine mess, but they are also taking their time with that too.
Old Man Logan is currently part of a 12-issue miniseries called Dead Man Logan. I wonder what they're doing with that, but they're just kill him. They don't need a 12-issue miniseries to kill off.
I mean, you think it was bad when like Superman died and then came back, and they had like the funeral issues and stuff. I mean, I guess that kind of started this, but Marvel has just taken it to a whole other level.
They have. Thinking of other good Marvel or Wolverine stories, it's lost on the readers of books today, but when he was first introduced in 1975, everyone called him Logan, and this wasn't even his real name, right? So for decades, there was this mystery surrounding Wolverine, and it was part of the charm of Wolverine as to who this guy was, what was his background. Everyone kind of knew he was part of this Weapon X kind of program, which reminds me of another one that Marvel presents, kind of half books with Wolverine and Ghost Rider. It was like 72 to 84 were the issue numbers. Those are amazing. It tells the entire backstory of Wolverine during the Weapon X program. Get those. Arts by Barry Windsor Smith. Oh my God. But nobody knew this guy's name, and all these experiments that have been done on him have really screwed up his memory. So you couldn't tell whether the memories he had were real or not. And it wasn't until 2009 that I think it was 2000, pretty sure, maybe in 03, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that they released a 6-issue mini called Origin. And in that is where they actually told the origin story of Wolverine and told you his original name, what year he was from, which was ridiculous. He's from like the early 1800s. The guy is super old, which is crazy. You figure out what his affinity for redheads comes from, and where he gets the name Logan, which is crazy. The story is nuts. It's absolutely bonkers. So, but it's fantastic. It really is. So, yeah, I highly recommend that as well. Origin, and it's very good. But enough about Wolverine, because I could go on about Wolverine for a while. Jeremy, what's your number 2?
No, number 1.
Oh, what did I forgot your number 2 already.
My number 2 is Flash.
We'll talk about Wolverine for an hour.
Yeah.
What's your number 1?
All right. Number 1 is Superman. Big surprise there.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, it's the character I have seen the longest. Growing up, I had this book that's like, it was like a hardcover book of reprints from the Golden Age up through the Silver Age of Superman stories. It was like 30s through the 70s. It had like, a few story arcs from each decade. And I just read that, cover to cover so many times growing up. And I just have always liked the character. I mean, just the morality, and people say like, he's so strong you can't beat him. And it's the stories where he has to use his smarts to get out of things. I think I like more than anything, because the books where he just defeats an enemy by punching them, those just aren't interesting. It's been interesting though, because I like completely dropped off when the New 52 started. Because I had been following Superman, like I said earlier, I like the fact that he was married to Lois. And then New 52 happened and kind of reset everything. And they were trying to make him more angry and stuff. I'm like, this is not Superman. And then towards the end of like right before Rebirth, they had this event called Convergence, because DC was moving their offices from New York to Burbank, and they needed something that could be done with like the not the regular creative teams and stuff. So, they could, I guess, do it ahead of time and then publish it, have it while they're moving stuff. They don't have to worry about anything. And it was a horrible event. But one good thing came out of it, and that was like the story was like Brainiac is stealing like bits and pieces from the multiverse and making the people in these little like captured pieces of time fight. So you would have like people from the 90s and then people from like the Flashpoint universe fight, and it was really stupid. But one of the things was the pre-New 52 Superman and Lois, and since like while Brainiac had everyone under these domes, they were not powered. Superman was able to impregnate Lois, and
oh boy,
that's pretty much the only way you could see that happening. But they had this baby, and then like at the end of the thing, they actually managed to get back into the New 52 universe, and they just kind of were like lived incognito as they raised their son. And the stories during Rebirth of Superman like teaching his son John how to use these powers he's developing, and just like lessons that he learned from Pa Kent, and it was just such good storytelling, and it was neat seeing Superman in that kind of mentor position where, the previous Superboy stories have mostly been Superman as a kid or the Superboy clone from the 90s. And this is a Superboy that's his actual son.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just such good storytelling there. And then Bendis came, and yeah. Bendis is like ruined it. He's like aged up Jonathan Kent in like the span of weeks to Superman. He's aged up Jonathan Kent 7 years.
Oh,
and
that kind of sucks.
They just started the story, so we'll have to see where it goes. But it's very frustrating to me to see him undo so much good stuff that I'd enjoyed reading the last few years. But still, I mean, Superman is, he is the moral compass of the DC universe, I think. And more often than not, they do get it right. Except in some of the recent movies. But, I mean, Justice League started to fix that. And it's sad that we're probably not going to get another movie, because I thought the casting was good. It's just the writing and the directing that was horrible in those movies.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have a good Superman in the TV universe, the Arrowverse. Tyler Hoechlin, I think, is his name, and he does a pretty good job there.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah, I don't have a lot of love for Superman. I have one fond memory of it, and that the Death of Superman trade when I was younger. Down, and it's a very good story, that Death of Superman. It's compelling, and
and you like the action books more than anything, and
I do, and that is nonstop action.
Yeah, I mean it ramps up a little bit, and then once it starts going, like that last issue is nothing but full page spreads, and
yep, it's well drawn, the whole thing. And I got that around the time that it came out, so it might have been the first trade of it. But after I started buying comics and stuff like that, I have searched out all of those individual issues and bought them. But it's still one of those trades that I still look at. And actually, that actual trade that I had as a kid is in my daughter's room right now, and she can flip through it whenever she wants. But it's just one of those stories that I look back on as a very well written story towards my tastes, anyway. But ever since then, I've never been able to get into a Superman comic. It's been one of those things that the character just doesn't seem to be able to kind of grab my interest. He's too good, There's a magic rock that can hurt him, but that's about it. But he can come back from basically anything. And I know that people listening to this are probably thinking, well, you really like Wolverine and he's basically invincible. Yeah, I know. I get it. But Wolverine can't fly.
Well, he can if someone throws him.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's
with a bad writer. I mean,
he's just too good. That's the one thing that's, I'm not a huge fan of Captain America comics either, though. Right.
Yeah.
It's something about the goody two shoes Boy Scouts that I really just don't like. Nothing against the character. I give incredible amount of respect to Superman for being the character that started it all, right? And Siegel and Schuster get incredible amounts of respect from me. Those guys paved the way, and they paved it hard. Those guys did a lot of work for very little, and then got got shafted.
Yeah.
But if you look back on it, it's paid dividends over and over. So I'm not going to say what happened to them was right. It's not, but it was hopefully recuperated by their estates. But something about the character of Superman, he needs a flaw. Like if I'm talking about Wolverine, where essentially both characters are invincible, right? Wolverine he's a broken character. His brain is broken, right? He has a broken memory. He can't remember his own name, right? So that kind of thing. That's an interesting character point that appeals to someone who's reading it like myself. Whereas Superman doesn't really have this dark side or something hidden away. There's something broken about him. He's very perfect, and that's hard for me.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I see your point there, but I don't know. In my mind,
he's gotten better.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like about him is he does have to live with the fact that he can only do so much, and he can't like he can't solve the world's problems because then he becomes basically the ruler of the world, and he doesn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And he also can't save everybody. In like I think it's the '78 movie, and also maybe in some of the comics, I'm not sure, but where his dad died of a heart attack, there was nothing
Right.
he could do to stop that, and it's his coming to terms with that. I think is one of the things I really like about it, where it kind of shows that you can do great things, but there are things beyond everyone.
Is this the one where Kevin Costner gets sucked up by the tornado?
No, that's dumb. I hated that.
He could have done something about that.
He could have. Yeah, that don't bring up that movie. I don't like it.
Okay.
I would watch Superman 4 before I watch that movie again.
Okay.
And Superman 4 doesn't exist.
Well, isn't that Superman Returns?
No. Superman 4 is the nuclear man guy.
Oh, okay.
That's absolutely horrible. I like Superman Returns. I'm one of those people.
I don't mind it. I think it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
I like the Superman movies. They're kind of they're fun. They're campy, but there's something about them. They're kind of fun. Catching a plane in a baseball stadium, that's a bit on the nose, but okay. Yeah. It's still kind of fun. But I don't know. It's just like I said. He's a very perfect character. He needs a skeleton or two in the closet to kind of, make him a little bit more relatable. Nobody can relate to Superman.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't have adamantium claws, and I can remember most of my life, right? But it's possible that I could have a debilitating drinking problem. That Wolverine has, or that I could get into a bar fight any night of the week, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's the argument that I always have with people that don't get Superman. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I've just always really liked the character. Maybe it was because I was a Boy Scout. I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, what's your number one?
My number one we have talked about before. It was on your list.
Spider-Man.
It is Spider-Man. Yes, and he is my top character, my favorite character. And his comic book was the first comic book that I ever bought with my own money. I do remember that day vividly. I was going grocery shopping with my mother, and this was back in the day when you could still get comic books at the grocery store. And I saw the shiny green cover staring back at me from the magazine rack. And it was on that day that I bought Web of Spider-Man number 100 with the fancy green hollow foil cover and the first appearance of the spider armor, never to be used again. But it was an attention-grabbing cover, and it grabbed my attention. So, yeah. But Spider-Man is one of those characters that he appeals to me, like I was talking about with when you mentioned him. I like the idea that he was a younger character. He wasn't, when I was reading him, he wasn't a grown man. He was younger. He had I think Mary Jane was either engaged or they were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. So they were young. And he was struggling with the superpower that he had gotten. I can tell you as a fan, I am sick and tired of the "with great power comes great responsibility" line. Oh my God, stop that. Stop saying the line in the books. My goodness, I am just sick of that line.
So you like how the MCU version of them, they haven't even really gone into the whole Uncle Ben origin
I love
stuff. It's like, yeah, you know what happened. So
You know what happens, yeah. There's talk about them bringing back Tobey Maguire to play Uncle Ben in an upcoming one, just as like a flashback or something, and I think that would be hysterical.
yeah, I saw in the trailer the suitcase that he uses has Ben's initials.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
he existed in the universe.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's the crux of the Spider-Man. He has to. There's no Spider-Man without Uncle Ben dying. But Spider-Man has always been a really cool character for me. There's so many different iterations as well. He gets a costume change every now and then, but you can't argue with the blue and white. He has a rogues gallery that can go right up there against Batman's. I still think Batman takes it because he's been around for, I don't know, 20 years longer. So, but Spider-Man's got some pretty awesome villains. A lot of them, if you think about it, could be ripoffs of Batman, villains, but they do a lot with their villain to kind of differentiate them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Spider-Man is a tortured soul, tortured by his Uncle Ben, something that he couldn't do anything about, or something that he should have done something about and didn't, and then tortured by Gwen being, not being able to save her, and then also by the other people that have died around him as the years have gone on. And all of these deaths, they all affect him, every single one of them. And that's tough. That's tough for a character. But to see that they work them in every time. Like I said, I don't read a lot of DC. I don't know if a lot of characters around Batman or Superman die. Jeremy, you might be able to answer, like, how many characters that are close to Superman actually die and stay dead?
Well, I mean, both his parents, the entire planet of Krypton.
Well, he was a baby.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, like, Mom and
there's
Pa
always
Kent
another
are
one.
dead.
There's always another one going on.
Yeah.
How many Kryptonians actually survived this thing?
Well, I mean, when Bendis came on, he immediately had his new villain character destroy the bottle city of Kandor. So, there's a few thousand right there.
I don't know what you just said.
But I mean, he's had, I think the main ones are probably Mom and Pa Kent.
Okay.
And I preferred when they were alive, like in the 90s, they were alive, but,
they've stayed dead then.
Yeah. I mean, they've stayed dead since at least New 52. Maybe even before that. I think when Jeff Johns was writing before New 52, he kind of came up with a new origin and killed him off.
Huh. All right. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not a lot for him to have lost.
But he's also not a tortured hero.
That's true. Obviously Batman has lost his parents. They got murdered in front of him. That's his origin story. I don't know if he's really lost anyone else. I think Alfred has died.
Yeah. But I think he got better.
Comics.
Yeah.
Excelsior.
With Batman, it's mainly his parents and then
Yes.
Jason Todd.
Right. Yes, that's right.
Who also got better.
Jason, he is. Everyone gets better from death.
Except unless you're his parents.
Yeah, no, I do have I have those issues where Jason Todd is killed. And that's brutal. Those are brutal books. But to have them turn around and bring him right back is
and
is
they
kind of a
killed
kick in
him
the teeth.
based on a 900 number vote.
Yes. What kind of fans you got reading this? But yeah, so I think that might be something that that Spider-Man might have over top of DC is that he loses people around him. Recently, and it's not a major character, but it still was something that affected the story and still does, is that I can't remember the villain they were fighting, but Spider-Man was fighting this guy, and Marla Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's wife, was caught in the crossfire and killed. And this did not help J. Jonah Jameson's opinion of Spider-Man. This was something that has still affected Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson to this day. And Marla Jameson is not a major character, but it gets brought up, is that, he's apologized and it was something that he never meant to happen, obviously, but it's, and it's something that J. Jonah Jameson still harbors some resentment about. It would be hard for someone to get over that, especially after having lived a lifetime of hating this person. So yeah, people die around Spider-Man, and it's something that makes the book a lot more compelling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you have the whole Parker luck thing where,
right? Yes,
it's not really luck.
No, it's not. Aunt May, I think, has been she's had her life attempted on at least 3 or 4 times now. She may have even died once or twice, but yeah. So there is comics shenanigans going on around Spider-Man, but there's definitely some people that stay dead. Then there's also the whole clone thing, which is a whole other bag of worms. But yeah, so I mean, the original 616 Gwen Stacy has stayed dead, and that's something that still haunts. But yeah, that's my number one, and I think that brings us to the end of the list. This was kind of fun. I think this was interesting. Yeah. We should get the other two to kind of sit down and do their own. So I think they would have some interesting ones as well.
Sure they would.
I wonder who would be on Charles's. I don't even know if Charles actually reads anything other than Transformers books. I don't think he has time. But,
well, I mean, between all the toys that he opens and stuff, yeah, there's no. It's
true. And the research for his 3rd doctorate. But we should definitely kind of poke them to see if they'll want to sit down and do this.
Yeah,
it would be kind of fun to hear. But yeah, if you guys are listening to this and you want to throw us a comment, do so in the show notes, or you can always email us at feedback@transmissionspodcast.com and let us know what you thought of our lists. Yeah, they're only 3 characters long, and we kind of hit the favorites on them, I guess. But what are your favorites? Top 3 DC, top 3 Marvel. Let us know. Maybe Jeremy and I will come back and talk about our top 3 Image or top 3 independent. This would be a short list.
Yeah, I don't know if I have even really read an Image book.
Spawn.
I've never read a Spawn book.
And what did you say when we were discussing this?
Walking Dead.
Yes, Walking Dead is my favorite character from Image. All of them, all of the Walking Dead. Yeah. So it'd be kind of fun. Maybe we'll do something like that. But I would just kind of shoot the shit, talk about some comics. This is, we all kind of read a lot of other stuff than just Transformers, and it's kind of fun just to kind of break with the normalcy of everything else that we do. But anything else you want to say before we close it out, Jeremy?
No, I mean, this was fun. If you like us doing stuff like this for extras, let us know. I'm sure we can find more kind of like favorite characters we like from various properties and kind of hash it out. I mean, we seem to do. I didn't think we were going to do more than a half hour on this, and it looks like it's like hour and a half now.
Oh my goodness. Maybe what we could do is if you could find a 6-part Superman book, then I could find a 6-part something book from Marvel, and we'll both read it.
That'd be really fun.
Yeah. And give our opinions. It has to be 6 parts, nothing more than, because I have one in mind already.
All right, we'll have to see it. I don't know if I could do. I'd have to look. But,
okay. Well, you come up with.
I definitely agree. Like a particular story arc, that'd be fun to do.
Cool. Well, if anyone else has any ideas, let us know. You know how to reach us: Twitter, Facebook, all the regulars. It's pretty easy to get a hold of us, and we're pretty good at getting back to you. So let us know if you have any questions, comments, something else. And leave us feedback on the show. I talked about this already, but I forgot to mention the widget.
Yeah.
So you can actually talk to us, and we'll play your show we'll play your message on the show, and that's always easier for us. So anyway, that's it for this extra, and we'll talk to you later.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.